All right, this is becoming the most popular hour, 30 minutes during the week here for the fans of True Grit Life. Jackie Long, how are you? How was your weekend and everything?
Great. How about you?
Good, good, good. A little hot, getting hotter. I was actually down in the city. I had a friend in the city, went down to Bryant Park and had a little lunch down there on Sunday. It's a beautiful day. Really nice. Really nice. So again, people that do not know, have not watched the show before with Jackie on, I met her husband on one of Ranger business trips, and he mentioned talking about all the mental health stuff I want to get involved in, and has mentioned his fantastic wife here. So she has a company called JackieLongHypnosis.com is the website. You can get her on Instagram, LinkedIn, or the website, JackieLongHypnosis.com. So again, I like to do this over and over in case somebody has not seen one of our shows before, because I think a lot of people, including myself, did not quite understand what hypnosis was. So can you give us a little synopsis again, Jackie, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Most people do not know what it is, only from what they've seen in the movies or shows. And that's, not what therapeutic hypnosis is. So really what it is, it's just a brainwave state that we go in and out of all day long. It's a very natural state. You already do it without knowing it. So a good example is right before you wake up, right as you're falling asleep, and you're kind of in that foggy, dreamy state. You're reading a book, you're in a movie, you're really engrossed in it. Same thing. You're driving your car. You don't even know how you got to where you got to. You were daydreaming. So very similar states. And when we're using hypnosis, therapeutically, we're just inducing that state on purpose with intention to help someone achieve their goals or get over anxiety or depression or something that is getting in their way of achieving their goals.
Very cool. Very cool. I thought last week's session was great, talking about the subconscious mind, the way you put that. Yeah, how it protects you. It's meant to protect you. Because I kept thinking to myself, I hold grudges or whatever it is, and you explain that's the way your subconscious mind works. Yeah, so it's cool.
It does. Like we have to consciously work to,
better
ourselves and get over those types of things because we are basically wired to remember things that are negative or that were hurtful, so that we don't repeat it. Right? Our subconscious is keeping us safe. Doesn't want us to get into an unsafe situation. And if it already was firing, hey, this happened and I felt unsafe, or it wasn't a happy situation, it doesn't want you to repeat it. So, I mean, it makes sense why it's there.
Totally.
But, in today's day and age, sometimes it's not always helpful in every situation.
Especially in relationships, it seems like too, right? And not just relationships, but so you're saying you can train your subconscious mind in each individual case, or just in general, you're training your subconscious mind to kind of let go?
Yeah, anybody can do that. You just have to want to. You just have to do the work, which, doing the work can sometimes be difficult, but it doesn't have to be. And you just have to really develop an awareness of your own patterns, your own behaviors, why you're doing certain things. Are they helpful? Do you want to hold on to them, or do you want to let them go? That kind of thing.
So, because I tell you, I need to work on that then. I really do. I thought about it a lot since last week, where I think I'm pretty good. At the same time, there's a lot of I have these preconceived notions based on past experiences that carry over into relationships, business. And I think some of it's helpful sometimes, especially in business, because you've learned lessons, right?
Yeah.
You gotta learn, right?
Well, that's the thing. You want to carry over those good lessons and have that discernment, for each situation. But you have to be able to recognize when something is really just not serving you, or it is beneficial for you to, view life through that lens.
Right. So let's say you've gotten hurt in a relationship or something in the past. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I think to myself, well, you know what? That wasn't this person that I'm dealing with now. So just let go, just go do it. But then you get hurt again. Mm-hmm. But I guess, you say get hurt. You get over it. It's not like it's going to, in that situation, it's not like it's going to kill you or something. It's just that you say to yourself, well, geez, I should have learned from the last time, or say, you know what? No, I'm just going to go for it.
I think that's honestly, with relationships in particular, that's just part of the human experience. We cannot avoid all pain, all suffering, that kind of thing. Yeah. And you're going to just learn something new from each person that you're in a relationship with. And yes, sometimes we may attract basically a different person, but kind of the same patterns or same situation, because maybe we haven't done all the work on ourselves or figured out, hey, I'm attracting basically the same type of situation over and over again, just new person, new face, so you have to be able to finally at some point be like, let me look at this pattern and figure out what's going on with yourself.
Right. Because if you're going to be in a relationship, you really like this person, want to have a real relationship, you do have to kind of go for it, right? I mean, you can't hold back because you're afraid. Right?
Absolutely. If you feel it's right for you, you know, we all are taking different types of risks every day, relationships included.
Right. That's interesting. Okay. So the word depression seems to be, and maybe it's just because I'm getting more educated about the mental health world, but depression seems to be something that is on the increase or more prevalent now. Is that accurate to say that?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I don't know if it's just being diagnosed more, or there's actually more cases, or just the circumstances of the world are increasing that for people. There's so many different factors that could be causing it, but the numbers do show us that it's on the rise, I would say, especially here in the US.
Oh, sorry. So that is actually numbers that they keep records of, and it's on. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what is depression?
So, you know, in the DSM statistical manual that like psychologists and psychiatrists use, it's really defined as like a prolonged state of, you know, there's a lot of different symptoms, right? Like don't feel like doing the things I used to like doing, really sad or withdrawn, you know, kind of can't get out of bed, it might look like. And again, there's so many different symptoms and it can look different for everyone. So don't self-diagnose yourself. And I'm not a doctor. But you know, it's really defined as a prolonged state, like weeks or months or recurring episodes. So we're not talking, hey, you know, I went through a loss and now I'm feeling sad for a few months. That is natural to what you're going through, right? We're going to go through periods of what we would call, you know, a little bit of prolonged sadness, or, you know, maybe feel lower or more depression when it matches the situation. But depression itself on its own is when it sort of doesn't match the situation. So maybe somebody, you know, nothing major has happened in their life, but they're still every day feeling this sense of like hopelessness and just a really depressed feeling.
And can you be born with depression?
I don't know. I do know that there are children that I've worked with that have depression, even as young as 5. Huh. So, you know, and then it's like the chicken or the egg, right? Was there a genetic predisposition to this, or did the environment create it? So hard to tell. I think they need, you know, more studies on that. It's hard to know.
So somebody could just be sad because something's happened, but then depression is like a more sadness. It's like a longer period of sadness.
Yeah, it's a very different. It's almost like you can't really pull yourself out of it kind of a thing. It's not something that someone can just, you know, oh, just cheer up. Oh, look on the bright side. Oh, why don't you just go outside and do this thing? It's not going to change how they feel, because studies show there is a chemical imbalance going on. You know, it could be triggered by an event, like maybe a loss happens, go through the kind of the normal grief stages, but then maybe that sadness is really, really lasting, or it also needs to affect like your daily function, your everyday life. So there's a lot of pieces in order to actually, you know, be diagnosed with depression. So
then is there a possibility that once you're diagnosed with depression, it's almost like you're looking for it more now, or is that, I mean, it's depression is depression. If you're depressed, you're depressed.
You know, that is interesting, because as a hypnotherapist, I always find language to be super important. So if you go to someone and they say, hey, you have depression, then that client or that patient may fully believe that. And maybe they take on that belief for life. Maybe they take it on for a few years. I don't know. I mean, it's good to face reality and get the help you need if that's what you're facing. And at the same time, I like to tell at least my clients also, you know, take things with a grain of salt. Okay, maybe I'm dealing with this right now and I'm working on steps to help myself. Maybe it doesn't mean I need to give myself this label, or if it doesn't feel good, or have this issue forever, because I'm working on myself, right? So just like when you go to a regular doctor and, you know, it's sometimes doom and gloom. So it's really, you have to be kind of the gatekeeper of your own mind and what you're allowing, you know, messaging wise to go in there. You can take the facts and be like, okay, these are the facts, but you don't have to go down the rabbit hole of like, oh, now this means X, Y, and Z. Now this means this is wrong with me forever. You know what I mean? You have to be careful.
Yeah, because you really do get shaped by your experiences when you're younger as you're growing up, right? So, for example, for me, growing up on the farm, my grandmother on my father's side, she had arthritis, so she was in a wheelchair as long as I knew her.
Yeah.
And my grandfather was just a total saint. He just took care of my grandmother and farm. That's all he ever did. But she obviously had real health issues, and we knew that she was going to die fairly early. So she'd gone in the hospital, and my sister and I must have been 15, 16 years old, something like that. We were home. My parents came home and told, I was sitting in the living room. My sister was down in the bedroom. My parents told me that, and I don't want to paint the wrong picture of my parents. They were fantastic. This is a one incident thing. So they told me that my grandmother died, and I really didn't know. I didn't know what to do. I just kind of sat there. Yeah. So my parents went down to my sister's room and told my sister that my grandmother died, and the three of them all sat in my sister's room together and cried together. And I sat out in the living room by myself, not crying.
Yeah.
And I think back about that kind of stuff, and there's a few other incidents that happen. I wonder, okay, in some good ways for me in my career as an athlete, I got hardened to believe that was the way I was supposed to handle things. I wasn't supposed to cry. I was supposed to be the tough little guy, and I think back, does that kind of shaped me? So I wonder, like all those experiences, right? That really does shape who you are as a person. Right?
Oh yeah, especially those early on experiences. They're core memories, and they get locked in there in your subconscious, and they definitely do shape how you are and how. But again, you can always change if it's something you wanted to change.
Yeah. Totally true. Yeah, you're right. You can change it. And I've learned that too. Like I've told you over the past, I'm 64 now. So over the last 4 or 5 years doing this True Grit Life stuff, I really have learned how to learn. And I think it's a good lesson for everybody else that, you don't just settle for what you are. If you want to be better as a person, you can be better as a person mentally and physically. But yeah, very true. Very true. So, okay. So there's depression, and it seems like anxiety doesn't have to come with depression, but very often a person is diagnosed with both depression and anxiety. Is that accurate?
Yeah, oftentimes they are together, comorbid.
And then what is anxiety then? That's just is it fair to say nervous?
Again, it's like one of those things that looks different for everyone. So some people may have physical symptoms, that would look like nervousness or panic attacks, that type of thing. Other people, it's just a sense of doom or a feeling inside. Other people, it can be racing thoughts. But really, if you have anxiety, it just presents so differently. It could even look like, I have to clean my house to get out this nervous energy. It can look like certain behaviors. It really presents in so many different ways for everybody. And I mean, in reality, we all have some levels of anxiety because that's just part of life. It's just when it becomes, when it starts to really impact your functioning, then we call it, anxiety or a diagnosis of anxiety that a psychologist might, work with somebody on.
So like a fear of heights, is that an anxiety? Because you're anxious about the heights?
I would call that a fear. You can use the word, I feel anxious to, embark on, climbing a ladder or something. But yeah, that's more a fear, a phobia.
Yeah. Because just because you're diagnosed with anxiety doesn't mean you're anxious about everything necessarily.
No.
I guess it's just interesting. For me, I know you've studied all this, but for me now, just learning more about all this mental health issues. Yeah, I mean, okay, so we compare it to if you break a leg, the doctor tells you you've broken the leg. The leg is broken. Now you got to get it fixed. I guess, and going back to kind of the statement before, where a doctor tells you you've got depression, so you got to get to work and fix it. It's fixable.
It can be. I don't know every single person's exact situation, but I've seen many people be able to make improvement through various methods, hypnotherapy being one of them. And a lot of times can be multiple methods. Maybe they're working with their doctor with medication, therapy, hypnotherapy, other methods. Sometimes it takes a bunch of things to find out what works. And like you said, like with the doctor, I think it's easier, right? Because we can see a broken leg. We have tools to see exactly what's happening, and we know exactly how to fix it. Where with mental health, it's so much more subjective and hard to pinpoint sometimes because you're really going off of what someone's saying, how they're presenting, and the things that have been used over the years to are hit or miss and it's so individualized. Whereas if someone breaks a bone, putting it in a cast, that's pretty much what's happening for every person, right?
Nah, that's interesting. And I guess you think of the cases too, where maybe from a parent's standpoint, they don't want their child to be labeled as being having depression or any kind of mental illness.
Of course.
So it's, yeah, sometimes parents are going to go, no, that's just not the case, right? Is it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Is that helping? Is that helping? I'm hurting. I'm assuming that's hurting, right? They're hurting the child.
It's hurting. Yeah. So, I have a lot of experience with this working in the schools, and it's always a difficult conversation to have with a parent of like, hey, your child is dealing with such and such, or they go to the doctor and they tell them this. Of course, they don't want to hear these things. They don't want things to be more difficult for their child, but by not, kind of accepting that and working with it and working with the professionals, that becomes harder for the child because they're not getting the support that they need.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if you can hypnotize. There's a dog outside barking right now. You think you can hypnotize the dog to stop?
I get that too. Like every time I go into a session, like the neighbor's dog barks or someone starts like mowing the lawn every time.
All right, and here's what we need to discuss. Then we need to get inside Tom's head. So I love dogs, and I've always had dogs growing up before and had dogs and everything. But sometimes I do let myself get wound up with the dogs barking. But then I think to myself, oh, it's dogs barking. It's not the end of the world, right? But then I'm thinking, well, yeah, but they should be, the owner should be, stopping the dogs from barking. I don't know. I get going back and forth on it, like whether it's bother me or not. And it bothers me. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if it's like incessant and I think it would bother most people.
Yeah, right. And I live in a condominium complex where it's just, the people are nice people. It's my neighbors. They're fantastic people. There's just no way getting around it. If you they're allowing dogs here. That going in here, they allow dogs. Right. I had a buddy of mine. I'll tell his name. It's Corey Hirsch. I don't know if I mentioned him before. He's a former NHL player, goaltender. He played for the Rangers after I played for the Rangers. So we got to know each other more, doing shows like this and doing alumni events. He had some mental health issues, and he acknowledges that contemplated committing suicide. He was recently diagnosed as being bipolar. I think he had depression before and now bipolar. And it was interesting for him telling the story too. And I know times have changed a little bit, but he didn't, obviously, when he first started having the feelings, he didn't know really what it was, didn't know who to talk to. It felt like if he did talk to anybody, his career was going to be ruined. Now, I know we've gotten better with that kind of stuff, but that still is the case, don't you think? In a lot of, like, let's say as lawyers, or I mentioned some, but I mean, like, I think there's somebody that, okay, they need to be hired because that person counts on them to do something, as an athlete, as a lawyer, as a business person. It's still there, right? I mean, a lot of people still just are not going to reach out and get help. And I'm not saying this is right by any means, but I'm just saying people are still not going to reach out and get help, correct?
That's really tough because I'm sure a lot of people think about how they might be viewed or taken, especially within a career or a job. That can be really difficult. I think there's more protections in place now, which is great, maybe than back when he was playing, as there should be with human resources. If people are doing what they need to do to be able to perform their job, then that shouldn't be something that, is a limitation.
Right. Yeah. Corey's very good too. And Deb, one of our listeners here, she's seen him. I don't know if Deb, you saw her when he was on my show, but he is great. He's very, I like the guys. There's been a few guys we've had on. I mean, another guy, Chris Nyland, another former player who he'd had a long battle with drugs and alcohol. It's great when they come on and really are open to tell all the dirty secrets that they've been through and everything like that. And I know for me too, it's the same thing. And writing my book was one of the best things too, because I realized, okay, I've got I got a chance here to make a difference in people's lives, to help people, but I need to tell the truth about some of the things I've done in the past and how I recovered and everything. And Corey is really good at that. But that is interesting, right? It's like the fear of people, like, okay, so I look at myself as this big, strong guy, right, mentally and physically, but there's still the fears of how people are going to judge you and how they look at you, right?
Of course. And I think that's just a natural part of being human, because we want to be accepted. Again, it goes back to being in community, and that was a safe thing for us. If we were left on our own in the wilderness, we wouldn't have as high of a chance of survival. So
that's right. You touched on that before. That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, that was great the way you put that. As soon as you said that, I was like, well, that's the way we were trained to be, right?
Yeah. So we need that community. And that's why, the COVID isolation, I think, was so difficult for so many people. It's not natural.
Right. Yeah. Imagine the kids that have gone through, mean, it's getting better now, but then went through a couple of years, where they normally be with their classmates having fun and everything, and we're stuck inside.
Yeah. I know even like some of my friends had babies during the pandemic, and you see them now like a couple years later, and they've had basically like no socialization. They just kind of grew up with their parents, and they have to really kind of learn to see other people, be around other people. And luckily babies are pretty adaptable, but it took them like a minute to be able to be around other people.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. And it, like even the kids now, like with all the they're not outside playing as much. They're not interacting with people. I did a speaking engagement probably about 3 years ago at College of Westchester, I think it was, over in White Plains.
Oh, yeah.
And it was really good. And I talked a lot about, they asked me some great questions. And one of the questions they asked me was, how do you make a good first impression on people? And I said, well, first you got to look the person in the eye, grab their hand, shake the hand hard, like make them remember you, like really engage with that person.
Yeah.
And you can tell they'd never heard that before, and I guess it's a generational thing too, right? Right. It is true. And you almost felt bad for the kids because they wanted to know how to do it properly. And they'd just never been taught because they just don't interact that much with people. It's all.
Yeah. It's a totally different interactive style. And someone was telling me the other day, their kids are coming to that age where they're asking for cell phones, but they don't want to give them the cell phones. But really, truly, that's the only way the kids communicate outside of school is through text and social media apps. And so the parents felt, well, are we keeping them from being social because this is just how this generation interacts? So
I guess if everybody else has got cell phone and your child doesn't have it, he's going to be isolated, right? Yeah.
Right. It's interesting.
That's very true. Yeah, because sometimes like a young person will text me and they have all these code things, right? Like they'll use like letters and you're trying to figure out what like the 3 letters are.
Abbreviations. Yeah.
And they're all like, well, of course it's this. And I'm going, what do you mean, of course? I don't know what this is.
I know. I feel like the older I get, the more I need to Google these abbreviations.
Yeah. I know. It's true. That is very true. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Some of the, that's why I joke around about talking to Google all the time in my house because this new stuff that's going on. I read a saying someplace, and I've kind of changed it around, but I tell people I live in thoroughly blissful ignorance. That I want to know what's going on, but at the same time, if you hear all the nasty stuff, I was just reading online USA Today before you and I got on the show, and it kind of penetrates your brain. You feel like you have to go take a shower after seeing all the bad stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's not good. You want to be informed, but you don't want to listen over and over and over again to the same thing. Because
there's that fine line, right, where you want to know what's going on, but yeah, definitely. So again, if everybody does not know, this is Jackie Long. She has a company called Jackie Long Hypnosis. You go to her website, JackieLongHypnosis.com. You can get her on Instagram, LinkedIn. Fantastic. I learned a lot from these shows. Again, we're going to try to continue to do this every week at this time for forever. You're stuck with me forever, basically. Yeah, definitely. So we've covered depression, anxiety today. Is it fair to say that those are 2 of the most common mental health issues out there right now?
I would say so. And I would also say those are the ones that most people are familiar with, because I think those touch almost, most people at some point in their lifetime, whether it's just, kind of normal everyday depression and anxiety or like a deeper diagnosis.
Right. And again, just like with all mental health issues, it's important that if you feel you do have some depression or anxiety, you can't self-diagnose, and there's nothing wrong with going to talk to people. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. I think more and more people have gotten past that whole stigma thing, and again, they just look at it that, okay, you've got something that you need to work on. And we used the example before of you break your leg, you go get it fixed. Same thing with a mental health issue. You go work on your mental health issue. Don't allow yourself to continue to be sick when you don't have to be, right?
Absolutely. There's so much support out there. Start where, it feels good for you, baby steps.
Yep.
And just start somewhere.
Yeah. And obviously with these cases of depression and anxiety, the threat of somebody trying to harm themselves is obviously higher as well, correct?
Yeah, it can be. Certain forms of depression, people don't have those feelings, and then some people do, and that's a real struggle. That's really difficult to live with. Mm-hmm.
So now people that are depressed or anxiety very often turn to drugs and or alcohol.
So if someone's not getting, support and help, and if they need to be on some medication to help them with that. If they're not doing those things, some people may turn to self-medication, which is finding random drugs and alcohol to help dampen those feelings because they are difficult to live with.
Yeah. How, another drug that I really didn't know anything about, like my boys, when I guess it's not just recently that I learned about it, but is it Adderall that a lot of kids take? Is that like help? Some people are taking it not recreationally, but to make themselves sharper, correct?
Yeah. So Adderall is one of those, it's prescribed for ADHD and ADD. A lot of college kids take it, and maybe younger now. I don't know who's getting into it these days, but yeah, to study, to stay awake, things like that. I believe it also suppresses appetite. So there's different side effects, for different people.
But that's not the way it's intended to be used, though, correct?
No, it's not. It's not, obviously not safe to use prescription drugs that are not prescribed to you.
Right. So that's the slippery slope, obviously. Now you're relying, if you want to study and you're using Adderall all the time, now you come kind of dependent on it, correct?
Potentially. I'm not so sure about the dependent effects of it, but obviously if you try something and it's working for you and you like it, you're probably more likely to keep using it. And then, who knows what types of effects that's having on your body or your brain.
Right. And I think it's another one of those things too. It's almost like some kids feel like they have to take it because everybody else is taking it. So
that, and I think competition, the stress of competition is really high for kids these days. Oh, I need to get into the best college. Oh, I need to, or whatever pressure they put on themselves or parents or, wherever it's coming from, to achieve. Yeah.
There's some scary combinations out there now, right? I mean, you think of somebody that's suffering from depression. Are they taking Adderall? Are they taking gummies or marijuana in some form? Are they drinking? You hear a lot of people that they're doing all the above, right?
And hopefully people are seeing a licensed professional and talking to them about, hey, can I take, gummies along with my medication? Can I take this with it? Is this safe? Those conversations totally important to have because you got to know what you're messing with chemically.
Yeah, that's scary stuff out there. All right. Well, again, great to have you on again this week. We will see you next week. But again, this is Jackie Long, hypnosis.com is her website. Again, you can see her on Instagram and LinkedIn in particular. We've learned a lot. And again, hypnosis is your main thing, but obviously very well schooled in all mental health issues. And again, for me, it's been a real eye opener about the benefits of hypnosis. It's not what I thought it was at all. And it can be very helpful. And the bottom line is it's all natural. It's not going to hurt you in any way. It doesn't put you in any danger or anything like that of saying something. Like, again, it's not the hypnosis where you're now babbling, telling your life secrets. It's just dealing with it. Actually, I like what you said too in the past, and you do this yourself. You also meditate, and I think those things are really important for you too. Like with meditation, and now I'm the expert here, right? So now Jackie's, so I'm going to tell all the things I know. But meditation is obviously to clear your mind and really relax, whereas hypnosis is to work on something that's inside you that you want to work on, right? So you're not clearing your mind and focused on it. Yes.
Good work, Tom.
I'm good. I am so good. All right. Well, great to see you. Stay cool. I know it's kind of hot out here today, so good to see you again, Jackie.
All right. Bye, Tom.